Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968 wrote his last book, uh, Chaos or Community? Where do we go from here? And he pursued his last movement, the Poor People's Campaign, which he didn't get a chance to not only finish, he really didn't get a chance to start before his life was cut short. I wonder what would have happened if he had a chance to finish what he had begun. He had dealt with racism, he had dealt with war, but he did not get a chance to deal with poverty, the third evil that he had identified in the world. 40 plus years later, we're trying to pay some respect to his incredible vision for a world better and a world inclusive of the so-called poor. Today, even if you're middle class, you feel poor. Today, people are frustrated, understandably so, with the state of free enterprise and capitalism in many parts of this country and even around the world. Today, people have, as a result of that, become full of fear and frustration that then drives a focus on what you're against, not what you're for. But Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an optimist. He was a strategist. He was an expert at what he was for. And then he mapped out a strategy to try to do something about it. It's easier to complain, even if it's a legitimate complaint, than to move on a positive plan to make things better. I think that people want to make things better. I think people want to be filled with hope. I think this world was made for good. It learns bad. That badness, to quote C.S. Lewis, is nothing more than failed goodness. All of this to say what? We want to pick up respectfully where Dr. King left off with the conversation and the question, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? So leading up to the Hope Global Financial Dignity Summit, we are going to launch a series of hope, actually, scratch that, I'm glad that was a Freudian slip, not hope, has nothing to do with Operation Hope, of local financial inclusion meetings, unbranded, local financial inclusion meetings. That means that they're yours. That means that if you're in a mosque or church or Boys and Girls Club or nonprofit, synagogue, a corporate office, a bank branch, a dentist office where workers are getting together, or maybe it's after church on Sunday afternoon after your service and you meet with the community room, or maybe it's on your block party, or maybe it's in your home. Get people together and begin to think about the future of free enterprise and capitalism. Somebody told me they didn't like free enterprise and capitalism, and what did I think about that? And I said, well, basically I agree that capitalism is sort of a horrible system except for every other system. That even the communists in China have adopted a form of capitalism. Now that's saying something. Capitalism has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, and China and India alone has done wonders when it was used legitimately and without greed and without malice and without selfishness in parts of the world. Even responsible subprime lending did more to lift poor people out of poverty in America than anything else in the last 50 years. It was predatory subprime lending, greed-based subprime lending, fraud-based subprime lending, investor speculation, greed, and massive levels of borrower financial illiteracy that tipped the scales in the wrong direction here in America and created a massive crisis. And so I believe that we can look through capitalism through a moral lens. I think that we need to ask a question of good people of goodwill here and around the world to be part of the solution we want to see in the world. I think that was Gandhi who said that. To ask them to come together and put their own recommendations together about what comes next. The only rule we have in these local financial inclusion meetings is no complaining. Maybe in the first 5 minutes people can vent and say they don't like this, they don't like that. Here's an example of Susie or Joe and here, or Mrs. Sanchez or whatever, the people who weren't done right, okay. But then 95% of that meeting after that has to be about a vision of where do we go from here. What is your positive recommendation? Pick any segment of this you like. Mortgages, or if you're in South Africa, it's a bond to buy a house, or if it's car lending or student loans or banking the unbanked, or Whatever the deal is, we pick whatever part of it you like, small business, entrepreneurship, so on and so forth, capital provision, access to capital, so on and so forth, and figure out some strategies to make life better. What are some ways to reform free enterprise and capitalism so it works for all of God's children? We will record these. We'll give you the tools, to record these meetings through cloud technology. Our IT department is doing that. It's free. Again, these are your meetings. They're not ours. We will then take your meetings and upload it into our cloud technology, and you and your friends and colleagues will have a chance to contribute to the dialogue of what comes next. From the most conservative of bankers to the most liberal of advocates will have a voice in what comes next. These will all be deliberated with as data feedback and data inputs for the HOPE Global Financial Dignity Summit. That's the only time I should be using the word HOPE. The meeting that we're convening in November in Atlanta, Ambassador Andrew Young and I are co-chairing it. Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke is the keynote speaker. 1,000 delegates, 50 countries. You'll be able to watch it on a live video feed if you're not a delegate in the building. And then we will issue a report in January, which will go to the President of the United States and the G20 leaders around the world about how to make free enterprise and capitalism work for the poor. So you'll have a voice. We want to get you involved wherever you are. Stake your claim, schedule your meeting, organize your agenda, own your reality, and be the change you want to see in our world. I'm so honored to be at a place where we can make a positive contribution to a powerful vision started by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. some 45 years ago. Rainbows after storms, loss creates leaders. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. Let's make sure that we don't let this crisis go to waste. Let's make life better for a generation yet unborn. Thank you very much.